Hi guys, it's Wynand Henderson here from VIS Arts. This is just a quick tutorial on the basics of this PCG city that I've created. Um, I'm using F10 just to show you guys again. You've probably seen it in G to hide all the things. Control L is to move the lights, for instance. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you quickly how this plugin works. Alright, F10 again. Do not worry about all these. I'm busy with another project, which I'll explain later. But when you merge, you'll see VisusCity and you'll open up in this space. Alright. So, I think the first thing I'm going to show is when you merge under your project settings, the most important thing is you just have to excuse my laptop a bit. Is your PCG. Sorry, not project settings, plugins. PCG. You need to have all these installed. Okay, so it's a procedural content generation framework. Procedural content generation framework, external data interpolation, and procedural content generation framework geometry script. You have to have all these installed. If you don't, you'll see you'll have to restart now, or you see. And then also, okay, this is not important, but it is important, just 3D text 3D. Because if you go, okay, so this is now VisusCity. I'll just concentrate on this folder. You will open up the demo. It should open up with this demo right here, right? Basically. So, under your levels, you'll see a VisusCity library. The default lighting is just for the sky and the sun. When you open up the VisusCity library, I'm not going to show it now, it's fine. You'll see that's what I talked about, the 3D text. These are you need the plugin for this to work, otherwise you won't see this. Right. So the package includes basically 10 ohms. All right. They are only external, not internal. As you can see, each is an asset like that. All right. And then on this side, I've got the 10 building assets. Right. Which I've created. Okay. So 10 ohms, 10 ohms. This is your cutouts. I've only got a spline circle and then a normal spline. And this is the 8 trees that I created. Foliage. And this is your roads. The roads, this plugin is not as much for a road. It's more for background. You'll see what I mean if I start this, if I explain this a bit further. All right. So, and then that is this DP right here, this blueprint right here. All right. Let me just explain a bit what happens here. Okay. So, you have to, on the BP section, let me explain if you have the BP selected. there's a few parameters which I'm going to go through now, what it means. All right, and you'll see what it means. Okay, orientation. So BP orientation, default parameters. This can only be 1 or 0. So if it's 0, you'll see that the alignment or the orientation of the buildings and the homes are perpendicular. If you put it to 1, which the default is right there, at 1, it follows the shape of your spline. So it follows the curve. It turns towards the curve. That's the orientation, 0 or 1. All right. So if you can see what happens here, it follows the curve, the orientation. All right. The inner distance is, so basically, okay, let me explain this a bit different to the way I've designed it. I've got an inner, which is the buildings, and an outer is the homes. Right. The inner distance is 10,000 right now. If I make it, for instance, let's say 5,000, you'll see the inner distance, the buildings, goes closer to the edge of the spline. So if I make it, the default is 10,000. It's kind of like a balance question, right? So if I make it 20,000, the buildings are gone. Okay, that's 200,000. Then it's only homes. You understand? So then it's the buildings. The inner and outer bias very much the same. If I make it 0.1, the buildings tend to push to the outwards. It's on 0.5. If I make it 1, the buildings push towards the inner side circle. All right, so I'm just trying to explain what's happening here. Your seats inner and outer is basically you won't see it here right now. It's normally a randomization seats. You can make it any number you want. That just changes your randomization of the program of the process. Okay, density inner. Yeah, remember, because the buildings are inner, homes are the outer. Inner is, if I make it, it goes up to 1. All right, so you can't do 2, it goes up to 1. So it means put as much buildings as you can, then it's 1. If I want 0 buildings, you put 0. You see, so then there's no buildings. Same for the outer process. 0 homes, I only have buildings, and yeah, so default is always 50-50. It's what it is, the default setting. Right, now this is where it gets a bit complicated to explain. Inner height by distance. It's on 1. It's 1. If I make it, this is you can't push it very far. So let's make it 2. This is only for the inner. The outer I would not recommend, because then you want your homes, because the homes you don't want to scale them, and they're only as objects, right? Static meshes. Um, the buildings are designed in a way that yeah, you can scale them, you can stretch them a bit. Um, yeah, you'll understand now what I'm saying. So, inner height by distance means it scales on the z-axis. It scales the buildings higher. Okay, I'm going to extreme this 3. You'll see the the more center it becomes, the more higher they become. I hope that makes sense. Um, so you can scale, you can play with that number. It's on default 1. All right. The outer I do not on default. It's not scalable, but you can, if you want to, it can scale the homes. But I would not recommend it because I mean, if you scale these homes, they're gonna look a bit strange. But I mean, it's up to you. You can still do that. The Okay, so those are your default settings. Transform. You'll see on the inner, I've scaled them 0, 0, and zero point 0.5, which means the 0.5, again, this is the default settings, means it scales on the z-axis uh, up to zero point 0.5 and 1. If I make it 1, you'll see it doesn't really change. 0.5 to 1. Let me just show you again. Uh, Also, remember it also plays with this number here, the inner height by distance one. All right. So I'm just trying to explain what happens here on the scale. Inner, transform, inner max. That's your inner max and height. You'll see I'm going from 1, 1 to 2, 2. Meaning, if you look from the top side, it stretches some buildings on the, let's say, this axis. If I'm going to make this like 5, you'll see, so it stretches on the x-axis randomly up to from 1 to 5. All right, so at this moment it only goes from 1 to 2, 1 to 2. All right, that's your inner and inner. Outer, I'm keeping 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, because I don't want to stretch and scale the homes. Okay, that helps. And yeah, that's all under default settings. Foliage. So foliage is your little balls here. Um, the area size, if I make it bigger, it will spread out more, 5,000. You'll see the foliage spreads out more to a larger area. Default I've put to 3,000. And your cell size is basically your density. So if I make it 500, it will be more dense. If I make it 200, more dense, as you can see. So default 1000 for now. Okay, so that is your basic default settings. Again, that's when you select the BP. You go from default settings. That's where all the settings are. Right. Okay, I think I'm just going to pause here for now. Take a breath, because this is my first ever tutorial video ever. And I'll come back to you in a sec. Okay, so basically, yes, again, if you select each BP, if you select, for instance, the home, you can see the house on the details page. You can press this button to go and see exactly which home it is. So under VisusCity geometry, you've got houses, and you've got the 10 houses static meshes there. The buildings, you've got the buildings, 10 static meshes there, and the foliage, you've got the 8 foliage assets there, as you can see. So that's under the geometries. Right. So, use case scenario. When you open up, again, you will be opening up in this level. No, I'm sorry, this level. And then the library is this level, called VisusCity City Library. Right, so use case scenario. Okay, I'm not going to say it. I do have to say there is some problem with PCG still. They are working on it. Sometimes it's not happening now. I don't know why, but when it happens, you can save your level. It's the problem with, I think, let's say if I copy this, that's Alt drag. If I copy this, okay, so this blueprint is only on a landscape, remember, but sometimes it does do some weird thing where, where I can't show it now, it's not happening right now, but sometimes it does happen. You can just save your level and reopen your level. It's a small glitch. Alright, I'm just deleting that now. Let's delete. Okay. It's a small. I'm not sure why that happens. Sorry for that. So, how do you use this? Let's say I'm going to the demo, the level that you open up with. Alright. I've got my landscape here. This is my curve for a cut out path. I'll explain it just now. So, under VisusCity, you've got two BPs. One for landscape and one for no landscape. Alright. Because this demo is on a landscape object, I am going to just drag and drop the BP. So it drops it onto the landscape, basically. So this is where it gets a bit tricky, but let me just try and explain. I'm using, if you press Shift, drop, and then just click. So it's Shift, click, then you collapse everything right here on your right hand side. So if I select the BP, right, that's your BP, VisusCity, then you need to drag down. Don't worry about the spline areas. This is the important part. PCG mesh shed. Right. It's basically an array. I've got three. That's your inner, that's your outer. So inner is your buildings. That is your homes. Outer is your homes. And three is your plants or foliage. Right. So for buildings, you'll see you go drop down, drop down, drop down. It's called inner, drop down. I've got this dummy building asset. Right. So I can replace this building asset with geometries buildings with a static mesh any building I want. Let's say that one. Drag and drop. it replaces the buildings with just that one mesh. Alright. To add another building, I add an element plus, then you'll see there's an index 2 which doesn't have anything, so I add another building. And this is the procedure to follow for creating index 1, index 2 homes as well. Let's do homes. Index 1, you'll see it's a dummy. I can do it. I can do it a building if you want to, but yeah, the proper way is to let's choose a home, drag and drop, and it's only that home that's being propagated. Same as for the plants. Plants, you'll see there's two members. It's only a dummy plant. Foliage, let's say that's tree, drag and drop. That is your basics of going and populating your blueprint. Index 1, index 2, index 0, 1 and 2. So as you see, I only have 2 buildings, I've only got 1 home and 1 tree that's being populated. Okay. Right. So that's the basic of the blueprints. Basic. You can stretch this. It's got 4 vertices for now, but I mean to add a vertex, I think it's control. No, it's not control. I think it's sorry. I think it's alt. Alt drag. Then you copy the vertex. You've got another vertex, and yeah. So that's the way to populate, if that makes sense. All right. Then again, VISUS City demo levels under the PCG folder. So VisusCity City only have these 2 blueprints. I will explain what the no landscape is in my project. Don't worry about these other folders because my other project uses this no landscape blueprint. PCG, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's basically roads and cutouts. And up to this point, VisusCity City under your PCG folder, you'll find a few blueprints. Now these blueprints are for just cutting out the paths or the roads, etc., etc. A cutout area is what I've, for instance, used for this pond. To cut out, don't put buildings or homes here. Unfortunately, the trees are, I'm still working on that process when I get to that. So cut out, you drag and drop the blueprint, it cuts it out, not the trees though, but it cuts out the buildings or homes. See, if I stretch it, it cuts out the homes. The foliage always gets spawned around a building or a home. Right. So keep that in mind. So this is a cutout area, and then you've got your cutout path, drag and drop. It's got 3 vertices. So basically, you just say, I don't want buildings there or homes, etc., etc. It doesn't create a road, but it gives you a way to cut out buildings or roads. DP road is your basic. It will generate a road asset. All right. Again, I think it's alt drag. Then you can put another vertex, etc., etc. It's a normal path tools that you can use, right? Okay, so this plugin of mine is not intended for very close-up detail. It's more for a background effect of what you will want to use. A cross is your cross, and unfortunately, there are better plugins for this, but unfortunately, you will have to manually move and try and align your roads. Again, it's not for close-up purposes. So I hope that makes sense. It's your normal cross, and you got a T as well. So as you can imagine, don't do not put a curve right there. The road needs to be kind of like straight to get your cross working, and a T junction. All right, that's for the T. Okay, so you'll see that's what I've used here. That's a T junction. That's another T junction. Let's see. So yeah, here I actually didn't even line it up properly because for purposes it wasn't really, yeah. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay, those are your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blueprints that you can use to populate. Okay, let me. I'm going to move on to a use case scenario now, onto a project I'm busy with right now. I said before, don't worry about this because I'm busy with a project. But when you install your plugin, you should have these folders right in there. If you want to, if for more advanced users, you can go and edit the blueprints. I mean, by all means. There are quite a few limitations to this plugin. There are other plugins that are much better for, especially for road and especially for foliage. There are other developers that's much more into this. So, for use case scenario, let me show you what I've used this for. Um, I'm not going to save because I've done a lot of little things. So, I'm busy with a project. Basically, it's a hotel. So, for the background, I needed to have a kind of like a city, like, or yeah, just to show or have a background. If I zoom out, what I've basically done is this is a normal Google Map image. If I zoom out more, you'll see that is a Google Map image. And then for the horizon, I've used just like a sphere and just for the mountains to have the scope there. So as you can see, this is basically what it is. It's not a whole world in itself, right? Okay, so the VISus City I've used 1, 2, and actually the year I've actually used one just to populate some trees here, because of the angle, for instance, there. Um, if it makes a little bit sense. It's a bit difficult to explain how I slow down. If you're on a PC, hold the right mouse button, and the middle mouse button speeds up or speeds up your movement, and your normal AWSD keys is for speeding up a minute. So it's by holding the right mouse button in as well. Um, yeah, that you all can figure out. It's a bit difficult to explain. Okay, so as you can see, is for this project, I've used VisusCity City to just populate the neighborhood and make it uh, just to have a feel of what the horizon and some homes in the background and yada yada yada. If you could understand that. All right. So this project, I don't use a landscape. Okay, so under VisusCity City, you'll see if I take this BP, all right, you'll see it's no landscape because that is just flat, 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 flat. All right. So what I basically did was just populate it with a few homes. Um, the settings I did explain earlier. Um, if I go on the mesh set again, you'll see that I the inner mesh is actually still the dummy, I think. Yeah, it's still the dummy. But because you don't see buildings, is because for instance, if you go on the BP, just the BP settings, the inner distance, I've made 50,000, which means there are no buildings are spawned 50,000. I think I remember. I think Unreal Engine works in centimeters, so this is like I think 500 meters. No buildings, if that makes sense. And then I just used cutout areas, cutout splines. These splines are cutout paths. Cutout paths, which I just added to cut out where there is no buildings or according to the Google map image. Right, so as you can see, that's basically what I've done here. Just to keep it kind of like looking what it's kind of like would look like. As for the same I've done there with this BP, no landscape. I didn't do cutout paths. It's so far in the horizon. It's all right. And then this BP, I used just the trees to spawn some trees. I didn't use my trees. I did use Megascan library actors to just. But I did use VisusCity. It's still my VisusCity, just to spawn trees for this area. Um, and that's it. I think that explains how this can be used. Um, Again, of course, my trees are very, 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 very basic. They are not Megascan trees. Um, Megascan trees you can get from the library, etc., etc. But this is a use case scenario of how to use my VisusCity library just for a background. Again, it's more for your background buildings or etc., etc., etc. I hope this helps to explain. Thank you very much for buying my product. Um, it's been a heck of a learning curve. Thank you guys.